He is kicked from the hero's party for being useless, but he turns out to have SSS-ranked skills in everything aside from fighting. Kurt is a 15-year-old boy from a village hidden in the mountains that no one has ever heard about. He always wanted to be an adventurer, so he came to the city and joined an S-rank adventure party, but only as their errand boy. While the other members of his party fight against powerful monsters, he gets knocked out even before the fight begins. Despite this, he is proud that he is a member of a party that is hailed as heroes by everyone, until one day, his party members tell him that he is fired. Kurt is aghast to hear this shocking news and asks what he did wrong, and the party leader tells him that he didn't do anything at all, and that is the problem. According to the laws of this world, there can only be 4 members in a party, and they need to fire him to make space for a high-ranking mage who will actually help them. Kurt tries to plead with the party leader to let him stay, only to get kicked in the guts and knocked out, making him realize that he is living the cliché story of the loser who is kicked out of the hero's party. Luckily, he doesn't keep whining and about it, and immediately reaches the temp agency in the next city to look for a job. Just as he enters the agency building, he meets an overexcited receptionist who immediately starts interviewing him for a job. She is surprised to learn that he was just fired from the party that was promoted to SS rank recently. Kurt gets depressed talking about it, but the receptionist cheers him up by saying that this will look great on his resume. After that, she takes him for an aptitude test to see if he has any hidden skills, but he gets a G for all the combat-oriented skills. Kurt is even more disheartened, and the receptionist tells him that the guy who can test his non-combat skills will come back next week. Kurt meekly tells her that he is flat broke right now, and the receptionist decides to give him another chance. She tells him to pick up a sandbag lying in the corner, and as Kurt does it, he finds the sand sucking in his mana. The bag starts growing incredibly heavy, and the receptionist tells Kurt to drop it. She tells him that since he has basic fitness and strength, he can do construction work to earn some money, and Kurt is glad to take up the offer. He goes to the construction site where a grumpy guy looks at his resume and then at his twink-like body, before agreeing to give him a job because they are extremely short-staffed. He tells Kurt that his task is to mix cement and repair the city walls with it, and if he can't use half a barrel of cement in 3 hours, he will be fired. The man leaves without waiting for any questions, and Kurt decides to put magic in the cement to make it stronger since it was common sense in his village. 3 hours later, when Grumpy returns to check on him, he is dumbfounded to see that Kurt has fully plastered 30% of the wall on his side and used up all the cement available to him. He can't believe that a noob can do all this in 3 hours, but Kurt takes his shocked reaction as anger and apologizes. However, Grumpy tells him to come to work for as long as he can and hands out his entire purse to Kurt, saying that he will send the rest of his payment over to the temp agency. Within 3 days, Kurt finishes plastering half the wall around the city by himself, causing panic amongst the rest of the workers. Grumpy notices this and tells Kurt that he doesn't have to come to work from tomorrow, because if he does that, there won't be anything left for those who need the money more than him. He gives him the rest of his payment and tells him to find work that fits his abilities better in the royal capital. But like any other self-doubting loser, Kurt thinks that Grumpy is saying all this only to send him away. He goes to the temp agency and tells the receptionist that he lost his job, when suddenly, they hear a tanned beauty arguing with another receptionist about a job offer. Kurt's receptionist decides to talk to the girl named Ulyssia, who needs a miner to explore a mountain, but she will pay them only if they can find something valuable. The receptionists tell Ulyssia that her offer is not reasonable, but Kurt is desperate enough to ask her to hire him because he has done some mining work back in his village. The receptionist warns him that there's a good chance that he will be paid, and even the girl says that she is looking for a strong dwarf and not a twink. However, she doesn't have any money to hire a dwarf, so she agrees to take Kurt with her. As Kurt leaves, the receptionist begins to fantasize about hiring him to be her submissive boy toy, when suddenly, her colleague tells her that the construction boss has sent a check for Kurt's remaining payment. The receptionist is flabbergasted when she sees that he has been paid 200 gold coins, and she trips on the sandbags. Her colleague helps her up while telling her that these are no ordinary sandbags but special devices to measure a person's magic capacity, but only people who are on the level of a royal mage can activate them. The receptionist decides to move the sandbags out of the way, but they don't even react to her, and she remembers how heavy they were when Kurt tried to lift them, making her wonder how strong he really is. On the other hand, Ulyssia takes Kurt to her base on the mountain, and tells him that they are going to sleep in the same tent tonight. Kurt gets flustered because he won't be able to control himself sleeping next to a cute girl, and Ulysses goes crazy because he is the first guy who ever called her cute. After rattling him for trying to butter her up, she gives him his dinner, which is just a boiled potato. But Kurt still finds it delicious because it has been a very long time since someone else cooked for him. After that, they sleep in the same tent, and Kurt feels his sword rising as he sees Ulysses completely defenseless. However, being a gentleman and a wuss, he goes outside to rub a quick one out and then sleeps there. Turns out that Ulysses was just testing him to see if she should choose him over a bear, and she gets rizzed up by his character and cute looks. The next morning, she finds Kurt sleeping outside and then notices that he repaired her coat last night too. While she is marveling at his abilities, Kurt wakes up, so Ulysses gets to business and tells him that they need to earn 10 gold coins by the end of the week. However, she has no idea how to actually find something valuable in the mountain, but luckily, Kurt has got her covered. He uses his knowledge to quickly find a rock with crystals inside them that are worth 3 gold coins, and Ulysses can't believe her eyes. In just a couple of hours, Kurt gathers a lot of crystals, but he tells Ulysses that they won't sell for much since they are too small, and that is why he decides to turn them into magic crystals. Ulysses is shocked because craftsmen who can do that are incredibly rare, but Kurt is finished processing one before she even has the time to complain. She is shocked because it takes an hour to make even a small magic crystal, and this surprises Kurt as he begins to think about the masters who can use magic for a full hour and not get tired. Ulysses knows that they are not on the same page here, but she lets Kurt work on the magic crystals. Once he is done, she decides to go to the city to sell them, but Kurt opts to stay back so that he can explore the mountain a bit more. Ulysses goes to the night station and shows them the magic crystals. When they ask her about the documents of origin of the crystals, she shows them a pendant, and the knights freak out because the pendant means she is an adventurer working directly for the royal family. They immediately grant her the permission to use the teleportation device to go to the royal capital, unaware that Ulysses no longer works for the royal family now. Once she reaches the capital, Ulysses goes to her friend Mimiko to sell the magic crystals. At first, Mimiko says that the crystal is not worth much because it is not glowing too much, but when she examines it closely, she offers to buy the single piece for 10 gold coins. Ulysses is dumbfounded by this price, so Mimiko explains that the magic crystals have 10 times the mana inside them, and they don't even glow too much because they are not leaking any. Ulysses tells her that she has 49 more of those, and Mimiko buys all of them from her instantly. Once the deal is done, she asks Ulysses about the person who made the crystals, but she refuses to reveal Kurt's identity without his permission. Even when Mimiko uses her status as the royal court mage to command Ulysses, she stands her ground. In the end, Mimiko asks Ulysses to make sure that whoever made the crystals doesn't go to another country, and also to tell him that he can get a noble rank and the position of a court mage if he agrees to serve the kingdom. Ulysses agrees to her, but starts freaking out as soon as she leaves the shop. She returns to the other city the next morning, and immediately goes to the job agency to inquire about Kurt. The receptionist tries hard to protect his identity, but Ulysses uses the royal pass to read his file. She is shocked to know the things he has already done, and then commands the receptionist to never share any information about Kurt to anyone else. She then deposits the entire amount she got from selling the crystals in Kurt's name, and then heads to the mountain to check up on him. To her utter surprise, Kurt has built a house from scratch in one day, and on top of it, he doesn't think it is a big deal because people in his village used to do such things all the time. Once they enter the cottage, Ulysses tells Kurt that he has been offered the post of the Director of Royal Magic Technology Research Lab, as well as the title of a noble for the magic crystals he created. Kurt can't believe that, but when Ulysses asks him about his decision, he decides to refuse the offer because he doesn't think that he is fit enough to command others. Also, he tells her that he is enjoying working as a freelancer right now, and Ulysses suddenly starts feeling conscious. She tells Kurt that she got a lot of money from selling the magic crystals he made, but since she had no contribution in that, she took only 1 gold coin as her fee and deposited the rest in his account. That is why she asks Kurt to work for her again so that she can sell his magic crystals and earn the amount she needs in the form of her commission. He eagerly tells her that he found another good spot to dig out minerals and says that he will get his tools ready, but Ulysses asks him to wait, thinking that he must be tired. Kurt tells her that he got a full 6 hours of sleep, and that totally confuses Ulysses because she doesn't understand how he can do that despite building the cabin. However, Kurt thinks that she is upset because he slept too much since he only got 4 hours of sleep when he worked with the S-Rank Adventure Party. After that, Kurt leads her to the spot he told her about and tells her to not dig any deeper than 50 meters. He leaves Ulysses at that spot and decides to keep digging at the place where they found the crystals earlier. A few hours later, Ulysses manages to dig a football-sized topaz out of the ground, and she is delighted because now she can earn money thanks to her own efforts. She then decides to check up on Kurt, and this time, she is sure that he must have dug a cave already. However, Kurt exceeds her expectations once again, and she finds that he has created a proper mine in the mountain, and even put glowing moss on the walls so that it doesn't need any additional light. Ulysses freaks out, and just then Kurt comes there with a crate of rocks in his hand. Ulysses eagerly asks him how work turned out for him, hoping that he wouldn't give her any more surprises. Kurt tells her that unfortunately he got a lot of useless stones and a little amount of the mineral he was looking for. Ulysses is low-key pleased on hearing that. But when Kurt tells her that the useless stones are called mithril, she is completely dumbfounded. Kurt says that in his village, they mined so much mithril that they just threw it away, and Ulysses feels her mind exploding because mithril is even more expensive than platinum and diamond. She falls to her knees in desperation, but then she asks Kurt what was the other ore he was looking for. As Kurt shows her a piece of the mineral called orichalcum, Ulysses recognizes it as the legendary mineral that is called the Metal of Gods. She asks him how did he find something so rare in this mountain, and Kurt tells her that orichalcum can be found anywhere in the world once you dig beyond 7 kilometers. Ulysses doesn't even have the energy to be surprised even more, and she just confirms that Kurt dug 7 kilometers deep into the ground and then returned to the surface in the time it took her to find one mineral. Just then, the golden rays of the sun enter the mine through the other side, and she realizes that Kurt dug a tunnel through the mountain while mining. But she accepts that as a very normal thing for him. Luckily, Ulysses can use the tunnel as a new path between the village and the nearby city as it cuts the traveling time down significantly. She decides to let licensed merchants use the tunnel to reach their destination quickly in exchange for a maintenance fee, which would be enough to cover her taxes and expenses. A couple days later, Kurt goes to the city where he runs into Bandana, one of the members of his previous party. Kurt gets excited to see her and asks if the rest of the party members are here too, but Bandana tells him that she has left the party. After Kurt was kicked out, the party struggled a lot in the missions and Bandana knew that they were done for. Then there was another incident where their party leader threw a tantrum after he didn't like the food of the most famous restaurant in the city. He trashed the place and left without paying the bill, and the guards started looking for him. He then ordered Bandana to find Kurt and bring him back to cook food for them at any cost. Bandana took his teleportation stone with the excuse of finding Kurt quickly, but she knew that the party leader was going to get arrested, and since their healer was summoned by the church, there wouldn't be any reason for her to return. However, she doesn't tell Kurt any of that and explains that she was fired too. He gets upset on hearing this because it means someone like him can never return to the party. He tells Bandana that he looked up to the party leader a lot, and she just scoffs because she knows something that no other member of the party knows. She decides to change the topic by telling Kurt that she is also a freelancer like him, and since they are in the same boat, they should help each other out. She tells him that one of her friends, who is an 8-year Meister, one of the 15 master craftsmen of the kingdom, needs some help urgently. She asks Kurt to help them for her sake, and the little pushover can't say no to her. He follows the map given to him and reaches the workshop of the master craftsman, where a cute elf opens the door. Kurt gets surprised, thinking that this lowly is the 8-year Meister, but she introduces herself as Michelle, the master craftsman's assistant. She happily takes Kurt inside as he tells her that he is here to help them on Bandana's recommendation. However, Kurt begins regretting it just as he enters the house, because it stinks worse than a bachelor's room. He finds that the entire place is covered in filth and Michelle tells him that she needs his help to clean it. Kurt realizes that he was called here just to help with the chores and not to help the master craftsman directly. Just then, the master calls Michelle to the workshop and she leaves Kurt to do his job. He immediately pulls out his cleaning gear and within 30 minutes, he turns the filthy kitchen spotless. After that, he decides to follow the direction Michelle went in and knocks at a door. A voice tells him to come inside, and Kurt obeys, only to find a girl changing clothes. He freaks out because of that, but the girl is completely unaware and defenseless. She doesn't mind Kurt staring at her as he nervously introduces himself, but then he notices a curse mark on her stomach. Kurt grows curious about it, and he asks for the girl's permission to inspect the mark. He thinks that she is in a terrible shape, but thankfully, she is still healthy enough to feel hungry. Kurt decides to cook something light for her and returns to the kitchen. On the other side, Ulysses takes the mithril and orichalcum that Kurt mined to her friend Mimiko, who tells her that the total value of the rare minerals is over 50,000 gold coins. Both of them agree that it is a ridiculously huge amount, and Mimiko begins to wonder how such a monstrous kid has stayed hidden from the world till now. Ulysses has no idea herself, but she reveals her plan to make Kurt an 8-Leer Meister, and then become his bodyguard to keep him safe. But the biggest problem in her plan is that Kurt underestimates himself a lot. On the other hand, Kurt has finished preparing porridge for the cursed girl when Michelle returns to the kitchen with her master Ophelia. Both of them are surprised to see the kitchen clean, and Kurt apologizes to Ophelia for using the kitchen without her permission. He tells her that he was preparing food for the cursed girl, and Ophelia makes him promise not to tell anyone about her. With that, she gives Kurt his payment for the day and sends him off, feeling careless about letting an outsider like him meet the cursed girl Lies. Ophelia then returns to Liza's room, who is her only student. After she helps her dress properly, Ophelia tells Liz that she will test the porridge for poison, but she tells her that it is not necessary because she trusts Kurt. Ophelia agrees to her requests, and then Liz eats the porridge. She likes it a lot, but then suddenly, she starts groaning in pain and falls to the ground. Ophelia panics, thinking that Kurt really poisoned the food, but as she starts running to find an antidote, Liz stops her. She suddenly springs back on her feet and tells Ophelia that she is cured and shows her that the curse has vanished. Ophelia can't believe her eyes because she had been unable to lift the curse, and the rate at which Liz got better is really suspicious too. She immediately heads to the capital along with Liz and goes to Mimiko's shop. Mimiko asks Ophelia the reason she came here, when Liz suddenly reveals her face to them, and both Mimiko and Ulysses fall to their knees because Liz is actually the third princess of the kingdom. Ophelia explains that Liz's mother was from a neighboring country, and she is the only thing ensuring peace between the two countries. She was cursed by someone in an attempt to start a war, but today, the curse was suddenly lifted. Ophelia asks Mimiko to help her find who cast the curse, but Mimiko is more curious about how the curse was broken. Liz gladly tells them that it was because of a man named Kurt, and both Mimiko and Ulysses freak out on hearing that he is involved in this case too. Ophelia then explains that Liz broke free from the curse after she ate the porridge made by Kurt, and Ulysses wonders what other impossible things Kurt has done in the 6 hours she spent away from him. Mimiko suddenly speaks up and says that the person who placed the curse on Liz must have connections with a curse user and enough influence to interfere with the anti-curse barrier around the palace. She has 3 suspects that fit the criteria, and they include Sinova, the first general of the Royal Expeditionary Forces, Pope Tristan of the Poland Church, and Isidora, the third queen of the kingdom. While Ophelia and Liz agree that Tristan and Isidora can tamper with the anti-curse barrier, they don't think that Sinova can do that. Ulysses replies that Sinova has connections with the Thieves' Guild, and they are experts at this sort of thing. With no way to pinpoint the exact culprit, Ophelia comes up with a plan. She says that they will lay a trap to find the person who wants to harm the princess. She explains that according to their country's laws, Liz became an adult after her 15th birthday, and now she must spend 1 year in training. Ophelia says that they will create a fake workshop for that, and then invent a fake 8-Leer Meister to run the workshop. When Liz starts training under the fake 8-Leer Meister, her enemies will try to gather information about her master, but since it would be a fake, they will not find anything. Mimiko understands that if the princess's enemies try too hard to find out about her master, they will expose themselves, but Ophelia doesn't know where they can find someone qualified to be a fake 8-Leer Meister. Ulysses has the answer to her problem, and she immediately shows her the magic crystal made by Kurt. While Ophelia is dumbfounded on learning that Kurt has more than one SSS rank skill, Liz is really impressed. On the other hand, Kurt goes to Ophelia's workshop the next day, but he finds that it is closed. He runs into Michelle on the way out, and she tells him that after he visited them yesterday, Ophelia left the house, so there is no work for him to do. Kurt gets depressed on hearing that, but then he gets distracted by his rumbling stomach. He immediately goes to an inn to get some food, and there, he overhears some adventurers talking about canceling a mission because their porter bailed out on them. Kurt thinks that this is a chance for him to get a job, and he approaches the adventurers for it. The girl tells him that a twink like him can't carry even his own weight. But the knight smacks her and tells Kurt that he doesn't look strong enough to help them because they are going to hunt golems that weigh over 200 kilos. Kurt cheerfully tells them that he can handle 200 kilograms without any problem, and to prove his strength, he decides to lift both the men of the group. He first lifts the samurai and then the knight, who is in a full suit of armor, impressing everyone at the inn. After proving his abilities, Kurt manages to get the job of the group's porter for this mission, and once they are done with the introductions, he finds that they are nice people. He decides to try his best not to let them down, but as soon as they are about to enter a dungeon, he steps on a slime and gets stuck. The ranger Sina tells him to stab the slime's core to kill it, but Kurt can't do even that and stabs himself instead. Sina is really disappointed by the lack of his combat skills, but she defeats the slime for him. Kurt apologizes to her party for slowing them down, but they tell him that he shouldn't worry about it because his job is just to carry stuff, and it is their job to keep him safe. This is a completely new experience for Kurt because his previous party members used to get angry whenever he made mistakes. He starts crying because of that, but then he wipes his tears and resumes the mission. Once they reach the cave, Sina spreads glowing moss around to give them better visibility, and Kurt spots some fresh goblin poop. The adventurers tell him that they can handle a couple of goblins with ease, but they will have to run away if they come across a group. They move ahead with that, and Kurt finds something on the cave's wall, when suddenly, the adventurers spot a goblin. They kill it immediately, but the goblin calls its friends before dying. Soon, the sound of goblins starts coming from both directions, and the adventurers realize that they have no way to escape now. Kurt tells them that he has found a secret passage they can use to escape, but the adventurers decide to do something else instead. As soon as Kurt opens the secret door, Sina goes after him, saying that she will help him find the exit, but instead, she shuts the door. Kurt gets confused about what she is doing, but then the warrior and the samurai from the other side tell him that there is no way they can escape with goblins coming from both sides. That is why they have decided to stay and stop the goblins while Kurt and Sina find a way out. Kurt is shocked to hear this, and he says that he will help them fight too. But Sina tells him to shut up because he can't even kill a slime, and he will just be holding her friends back. Kurt is devastated as he realizes that the two adventurers are sacrificing their lives for him, and he can't even do anything to help them. But Sina tells him that they will survive. She tells Kurt that they need to find a way out quickly, but as she spreads the glowing moss around the room, she sees an iron dragon golem and freezes in terror. On the other hand, Ulysses leads Lies to the inn where Kurt is staying, but they don't find him in his room. Suddenly, Bandana appears outside the room and tells them that Kurt went to a cave in the north with an adventure party. Ulysses rushes outside to see who is talking, but by the time she reaches there, Bandana has vanished. Ulysses thinks that it might be a trap, but she is worried about Kurt more, so she decides to go to the caves to search for him. Lies says that she will join her because she knows enough magic to protect herself, and Ulysses has no choice but to let her come along. They soon reach the cave, and Lies can identify Kurt's footprints on the floor. Once the hard floor begins and the footprints end, she uses a magic spell to boost her senses, and Ulysses thinks that the princess will improve her hearing to find Kurt. However, this obsessed simp enhances her sense of smell instead and sniffs the walls to find the direction Kurt went in. Ulysses is both appalled and jealous of Lies now, but then she suddenly hears some sounds coming from a distance. She realizes that someone is fighting with goblins ahead and decides to help them, so Lies boosts her strength with magic. Ulysses rushes ahead and saves the two adventurers who are surrounded by goblins, leaving them awestruck. On the other hand, Sina undergoes a mental breakdown because of the iron dragon golems in front of her. She knows that the golems will attack them as soon as they try to get past them, and that means that her party members risk their life for nothing. She gets depressed, but Kurt tells her to cheer up because they are going to escape. Sina thinks he is delusional, but then Kurt walks towards the dragon golems calmly. She panics as the golems activate and attack him, but Kurt dodges their attacks and climbs on top of them in a split second. Then, with a single strike of his dagger, he breaks the golem's tail. The dragon golem tries to attack him out of desperation, but Kurt dodges that too, and then breaks its head with another hit. Sina can only stare at him in terror and awe as Kurt swiftly dismantles the golems one by one. She asks him what the hell did he just do, and Kurt simply tells her that he used to mine iron golems back in his village. Just then, Ulysses kicks open the door looking for Kurt, and the stunned Cena begins telling her how he destroyed the iron golems with his dagger. Ulysses finds it hard to believe too, but then she decides to deal with the more important things first. She tells Kurt that the adventurers he came here with are fine, and she has important news to share with him. She tells him that a new 8-layer workshop is going to be formed soon, and she is going to work as a bodyguard there. She asks Kurt to work at the workshop with her because Ophelia highly recommended him after his work at her place. Kurt gets happy to hear that, but he hesitates since he feels that he needs to work with the adventurer party. However, the adventurers tell him that he should not let this golden opportunity slip from his hands. Ulysses adds that since the workshop is new, they need a lot of workers and decides to hire the adventurers too. Everyone gets happy with the arrangement, and then Ulysses tells Kurt that he should get his non-combat abilities evaluated before he starts working at the workshop. Kurt agrees with her and reaches the temp agency, where Mimiko has arrived from the capital for his assessment. Once the assessment is done, Kurt goes out partying with his adventurer friends, but Ulysses goes to talk with Mimiko about the results. Mimiko tells her that she told Kurt that he had B-rank skills in cooking, cleaning and mining, and C-rank abilities in the rest of the things. However, that was just a lie, and he had SSS rank abilities in everything. Mimiko says that it is a good thing that she did the evaluation because it will be incredibly dangerous if the news goes outside. Just as she says this, she hears a whimpering sound and turns around to see the receptionist trying to shut her ears to convince Mimiko and Ulysses that she didn't hear anything. Soon after that, Kurt and his group head out to a distant city in a high-speed carriage. While Kurt shows everyone how uncivilized he is by sticking his nose on the window, Liz explains that the city they are going to was once a military base next to demon territory. It is quite far away from the rest of the country, and they can't even teleport directly there. But Liz says that it is still an important city to the Alliance. The adventurer party still can't believe that they are getting employed by the 8-layer Meister in such an important city, but Ulysses tells them that they are well qualified for the job. The warrior Cans and the samurai Danjo are glad to hear that, and they ask about the 8-layer Meister they are going to serve, but that leaves Ulysses speechless, and she somehow makes excuses about the Meister being busy with some sudden work. Meanwhile, Cena doesn't believe that they are qualified to work with an 8-layer Meister. She thinks that Ulysses only offered them this job to shut their mouths, and she is determined to protect her brother and Danjo if they are ever in danger. Soon, they reach the city where their workshop is going to be situated, but Kurt remembers it as the city where he started working as a freelancer. He gets sad on recalling how he was fired just after 3 days of working at the construction site. But once they enter the city, he finds that the remaining wall has not yet been repaired. Ulysses distracts him by saying that maybe they are repairing the wall with a different technique, and Kurt buys that lie. Soon after that, they reach the location of their workshop, but it is just an empty plot. Ulysses tells everyone that they are going to stay in an inn till the workshop is built, and then turns to Kurt, asking if he can do it all by himself. Kurt nervously tells her that he can't build a workshop in just 1 day, but he can manage to make one in 3 days. The adventurers are dumbfounded on hearing this, but Ulysses tells Kurt that he should take his sweet time and asks them if he needs any materials. Kurt immediately prepares a list with items like amethyst, sapphires and griffin wings, and Ulysses tells him that she will bring them in 2 days. Cena gets suspicious of the strange list and Ulysses notices her odd reaction. She quickly tells everyone to follow her to the inn so that Kurt can work in peace. She also asks Kurt to come to the inn for meals and rest, and he agrees. With that, everyone else goes to the inn and Ulysses calls a meeting with the adventurers to fill them in about the important details. She introduces herself as an adventurer formerly working for the royal family, and then Liz introduces herself as the 3rd princess of the country. The adventurers' jaw drops on hearing this, and they ask if Kurt is a noble too. Ulysses says that even they don't know Kurt's real identity, but they know that his combat skills are all G rank, and all other skills are of SSS rank. She says that they have not told Kurt about it because he would not believe it, but that makes Cena angry. She lashes at Ulysses, saying that she is exploiting Kurt by hiding the truth from him, and then turns to her brother for support. However, Keynes knows that they are dealing with things beyond their pay scale, so he asks the girls to continue. Liz then tells them that she was cursed by someone and Kurt broke the curse by cooking porridge for her. That is why they decided to set up a workshop in this distant town, so that they can hide their identity from the world and force the person who cursed her to come looking for her. Liz explains that Kurt knows nothing about this, and he is not even aware that she is a princess, but he still helped her without asking for anything in return. Ulysses says that Kurt is too pure for this world and she wants to protect him, and Lies asks the adventurers to help them with that. Danzo and Kenz immediately agree to their request because Kurt is their friend, but Sina still doesn't trust them yet. She asks why should they put their lives online for someone they met just 3 days ago, and Ulysses replies that she understands her very well because she also met Kurt just 6 days ago. Sina is shocked on learning this and she leaves the inn, wondering what to do. She decides to check up on Kurt first and tell him the truth. But once she enters the workshop location, she finds that Kurt has already finished the basement. She is left aghast by this, but Kurt tells her that he is going really slow because in his village people could build a dozen houses in just 1 day. The shocked Sina asks Kurt if he doesn't hate work being shoved on him, and he replies that he likes it a lot because everyone in his previous party called him useless, but now he has the chance to be useful to everyone. Sina suddenly realizes why Ulysses said Kurt is too pure, and she decides to join her act and protect Kurt from the world. On the other hand, Danzo returns to the city where he worked earlier and meets Bandana, who is working as an informant. She tells him that the porter who bailed out on their last mission is actually a career criminal who joins parties to sabotage them. She says that one of their rival parties had paid him to make them sign up for the dangerous mission so that they would all die, and he almost got that done. Danzo thanks Bandana and pays her fee for the information, before going to the bar where the traitor is enjoying his success. He curses Danzo's party for surviving the dangerous cave and then getting a job offer from the third princess, but he still plans to crush them so that his value increases in the eyes of his future clients. However, as he notices Danzo sitting behind him, he freaks out and runs from the bar. He trips on a wire and Danzo easily catches up to him, saying that he should have been more aware when he hired him. The traitor pisses his pants as he begs for mercy, and fortunately for him, Danzo didn't want to kill him. He just leaves him with a warning about never coming near his friends again, but this disappoints Bandana, who was hiding in the darkness the whole time. She wanted Danzo to deal with the traitor because he could create problems for her master's plans in the future, but just as she is about to do it herself, 2 spies arrive there and take the traitor away. Bandana recognizes them as the members of the intelligence unit run by Mimiko, whom her master had instructed her to leave alone. Just then, she gets a message from her master about her next mission to investigate Kurt's hometown. Meanwhile, 3 days pass since Kurt started working on the workshop, and when everyone arrives to check it out, they can't believe their eyes. The workshop is the most luxurious building they have ever seen, and there are fruit-bearing trees in the garden. No one understands how Kurt did all this in just 3 days, but they have not yet seen the inside of the workshop. It is fully furnished everywhere, and Kurt has even created a special device that can create all the water they need. That is the part that confuses everyone the most, and they ask Kurt to explain how he made it. He tells Ulysses that he turned the gemstones he ordered into magic crystals so that they can provide water, light and heat to the building throughout the year. He has also built private rooms for everyone and a lavish office for the Atelier Meister. He asks Ulysses when the Atelier Meister will return, and she makes an excuse that he got busy with something new this time. She then asks him where is his room, and he replies that since he is just in charge of errands, he doesn't need a room, so he is going to stay in the empty kitchen closet. Everyone freaks out on hearing this, and then Ulysses and Lies tell him to use the office as his room, because it is going to be empty for the time being. It takes 2 hours of convincing from everyone to get Kurt to agree to use the office as his room. Ulysses then asks him if he can create a barrier to protect the house from curses, but that is beyond Kurt's expertise. Ulysses has to use the old-fashioned way of putting warding circles all over the house to protect Lies and others from curse, but she gets startled when Lies opens her door, expecting that it is Kurt who is here to sneak into her bed at night. However, the next morning, as everyone gets busy enjoying the food prepared by Kurt, he goes on a mission to clean the warding circles, thinking that they are graffiti. Ulysses rushes to stop him, but she is too late and Kurt cleans the last circle in front of her eyes, even though Mimiko had said that they are impossible to remove. She somehow makes up a story to explain those circles to Kurt, but then she starts worrying because she doesn't have any more of them, and if someone targets the princess now, she is the only one who can protect her. A few days pass since that incident and fortunately, there have been no attacks on Liza's life. Ulysses is relieved that the princess looks completely fine, even though Kurt erased the magic circles to ward off curses. She wonders if it is because their enemies don't know about her location, or if Kurt's cooking is simply nullifying all the curses cast on her without letting anyone know. Also, Mimiko has arrived in the city and spread her network of spies to catch their enemies, and Ulysses thinks they can rest assured for the time being. She then tastes the cake Kurt has made and loses her mind over how delicious it is. Lies also praises the cake, and Kurt tells her that he made it using rice flour. Lies remarks that he is great at making rice dishes because it was his rice porridge that broke her curse. She asks him to prepare that any time she falls under a curse, but Kurt tells her that there is no need for that because she will not be cursed again. Ulysses is surprised to hear this and asks Kurt how can he say that so confidently because earlier he told them that it was difficult to create a barrier to protect against curses. Well, Kurt tells her that it is indeed difficult to create a barrier to ward off curses inside the building, because the building itself is a barrier that reflects all curses. Kurt explains that he can't create another barrier inside of it, which is why he made his earlier statement. He adds that he tweaked the function of the barrier a little, and instead of reflecting the curse on the user, it makes them shine brightly because he doesn't want anyone to get hurt by the curse. Ulysses immediately leaves to inform Mimiko and others about this, and Kurt asks Lies if she would like to go shopping with him. Lies gets sad on hearing this because despite wanting to go with him, she cannot leave the safety of the building. On the other hand, General Allraid and his assistant are patrolling the city walls because of a thick fog surrounding them. The general has a feeling that something bad is going to happen, but his assistant tells him that they shouldn't worry too much because the city walls were repaired properly. He reminds Allraid that he acted as the project supervisor himself, and the general replies that he did it to make sure there were no enemy spies who compromised the city's safety. Meanwhile, Mimiko, Ophelia and Ulysses find a curse user who is glowing even after his death. Mimiko tells them that he was already dead when her spies found him, and Ophelia remarks that Kurt created a really strong reflecting barrier that works even when the target is dead. She says that if Kurt fully cooperates with them, they can solve this problem in just one day, but Ulysses is against it because she doesn't want to put him in any danger. Suddenly, they hear the city alarms going off as an army of skeleton monsters approaches the city walls. General Allraid and his assistant panic on seeing this, but they quickly gather the soldiers. Allraid decides to stay back and defend the city with his life and asks his assistant to evacuate people. But then suddenly the skeletons walk right into the wall and vanish. Everyone is confused about what is happening, and even Ulysses and others get this report through her spies. Ulysses suddenly realizes that the monsters are disappearing after being absorbed into the western side of the wall, which was the part Kurt repaired. Soon, the first wave of monsters is completely absorbed into the wall, but more of them are going to arrive soon. The one behind the attack is Marlefus, the healer of Kurt's former party, who was exiled by the bishop after the party leader was arrested. Marlefus tried explaining that she had nothing to do with that, but the Hippo bishop told her that her actions have brought shame to the church. However, he gave her a chance to redeem herself and also get promoted to an official priest. Marlefus was eager to know more, and the bishop poured an expensive wine before telling her about the mission. As soon as Marlefus drank the wine, the fat bastard told her that her mission is to help him assassinate the third Princess Lies. She was stunned to hear that, and the very next moment, a curse took over her body. The bishop told her that the wine was cursed, and now she cannot consume anything except water till she killed Lies. Marl accepted the mission, believing that she should follow the bishop's orders because he is a representative of their god. However, she soon realized that the bishop had made a deal with the demon to assassinate Lies, but it was too late to change her decision by then. In the present, the demon absorbs her magic power to summon more skeletons, and Lies realizes that she has been set up